All right, we're going to work on exercise 22-1 from Murach's Visual Basic 2015. This is working with an XML file. I have the start files open here, and we have in this directory, we have customers.xml. Okay, so if you're in my class, customers.xml is right in your project directory. If not, it'll be in your VB 2015 files directory. They want us to look at how this is structured. So I'm going to open this up. So I'm opening this in Sublime, which is my text editor of choice. There's many different ways you can look at this, but you can see our XML structure here, where we have a list of customers made up of customer objects, and customers have these elements of first name, last name, email, and these all have values to them. So this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to read this, and then as we add customers to the list, we're going to write to this list. Okay. So in the customer DB class, add code to the get customers and save customers. We're going to start by we need an import statement again, just like we did in 21-1 and 2. And this time, instead of system.io, we're going to import system.xml. Okay, we still need a constant here for directory as string equals, and remember for my class it's .. If you're following along with the book, it would be /VB2015/files. Private const file name as string equals, and our file name is customers.xml. And then finally we have like our full path as a string, and that's equal to the directory and the file name. Okay, put those two together, we get our full path. Now, I don't know why this says text file here. This should really say from XML file. Anyway, it doesn't really matter because we're taking that comment and we're getting rid of it. We need to start by creating a new instance of an XML reader settings object. And in that settings, we're going to tell it to ignore white space. And we're also going to ignore comments. So white space is this, like this is tabbed in, it's going to ignore that. And even this new line, it's going to ignore. So it's going to look at this XML file and it's going to look at it like that. Okay? But for us, this is easier to read. So we're going to read and write to this file like this. We're going to write to the file like this. But when we read it, we're going to ignore all white space because that doesn't matter. So we need an XML reader. I'm going to call this XML in. And so we're going to, using the XML reader class, we're going to create an XML reader. And we are reading from the full path, and we're setting to it as a second argument the settings. Okay, so the first argument is full path, which is our directory and our file name put together, which for my class is .. customers.xml. And then the settings is this XML reader settings object. Now, let me write some of this out and then we can talk about what's going on. So our reader is going to read to the first customer descendant. So it's reading along. Okay, it's reading that stuff. It reads this customers element, and then it gets to the first customer element. So this is where our reader stops. It read to that descendant there. And then it's going to do this while we can read to the next customer sibling. So siblings, this customer element, its parent is customers. And siblings share a parent. So if we look at this parent, we have this customer and this customer. So John Smith and Jane Doe as customers are siblings. Actually, all of our customers in this customer maintenance application are siblings because they're all descendants of the customer's parent. So what are we going to do for each of these customers that we're reading? Well, I'm going to say I'm going to create a new instance of a customer object. Okay, so with our XML reader, what we need to do is we need to read the start element. And the start element, you'll see, is customer. So we read that, we kind of ingested that, and our cursors, our pointer, if you think about it this way with our XML reader, is right here. And then what we need to do is I'm going to read element content as string next. Okay, so it's going to read the next thing as a string, this first name. It's going to read John then as a string. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to write it back to customer first name. And we're fortunate, I guess, that our application only uses strings. So I can take this, I'm going to hit Control D as in duplicate twice. And then I'm going to take first name and change it to last name. And I'm going to take this one and change it to email. So we read these in. And then I'm going to say customers.add customer. Let me just add some blank lines here. Maybe this will make sense a little bit better for you. We create a new instance of the customer. We read up to the customer element. We ingest the next element as a string, and we're going to save that back to first name. The next one we read as a string, we save it to last name, and the next one we read as a string, save it to email address. We take that customer, we add them to the customers list, and then we're going to try to do this again as long as we can get to another sibling. So if I save this and hit F5 to run it, this is going to be filled up with that XML object. All right, let's not do anything other than exit here because I don't want to screw anything up. If I open my XML file, why don't we take a customer and put another one in between and make one for yourself. Save your XML file, come back, run this, and then you should be stuck in the middle there. All right, so now we need to handle this writing. Now that we have this list of customers, it reads it nicely, we need to write back to that XML file. So we need some XML writer settings. And what we're going to do is say indent equals true, because we want our XML file to be indented like this so that it's easy for us to read when we open it up with a text editor. And then since we said to indent it, we need to say what the indent characters are. And the indent characters, I like to use just 4 spaces. All right, so now we need an XML writer. And it's going to work similarly to up above here. We're going to send full path and settings to it. There we go. So dim XML out is our variable of type XML writer, and that's created by calling the create method on the XML writer class, giving it the full path, which, if you recall, is the directory and the file name here. I'm just going to minimize my Git customers. And the settings, which are our XML writer settings. And the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to write the start of our document. Okay, so we wrote to our XML file that first line saying, the XML, the version, encoding, all that stuff. And now we need to write the customers element. Okay, so I'm going to do XML out dot write start element, and we're going to write customers. Now you don't need to put the less than and greater than here. You just put in customers. And what I like to do when writing XML is whenever I open something, I want to write that end element. And when I do this, I'm going to comment on here customers. So I know that this write end element is aligned with this write start element. Because write end element, you don't give it an argument. It automatically knows that we're going to close the last thing that's open. And while I'm here, speaking of closing things, I better put close in there. Okay. So I've written customers, I write end customers, and I close it. So if I run this right now and I run my application, what it'll do is it'll take all these customers, it'll write customers, it writes end customers, and it closes it. And I should just lose all of my data. I'll click add test at test.com, save, exit, run it again, it's empty. Okay, and the reason it's empty, again, because I didn't write the customers here. So I'm going to say for each customer as customer in customers, I need to write that as to the XML file. So I'm going to do XML out dot write start element, and I'm going to write customer. And like I said before, every time we start something, I want to, where's my cursor? I want to write an end element to go with it. This is just to help me keep track of what I'm doing. So for each customers, I have a customer start element, and then I write the end element. And in between, what I need to do is I need to write element strings. Because we're just dealing with first name, last name, email address, they're all strings. Pretty easy example we're working with here. Just to make sure that when you put first name here, it is written out the same as, like, it doesn't matter here. Because really, we're just reading content as a string here. So calling it first name or whatever you want to call it doesn't really matter, because when we read it, we just read it as a string. But I guess it's good practice that if I have first name with a capital F and a capital N here, it's the same as the property of our customer object. Makes it just easier to keep track of things. What we're going to put in there is customer.first name. Again, I'm going to just duplicate this because it's pretty much the same stuff. So this write element string, what this does is it will write first name and first name, like that. And then this ends with the customer. Make sure we have the XML out close here, as we do up here. I'm going to save this. I'm going to run it. Again, because I screwed up my database, it's empty. So we're going to add test at test.com. Hit save and exit. Open up my customers.xml file. And there's test at test.com. I'm going to close that. I'm going to rerun this again. Let's add myself to it. Hit exit. Look at it one more time. There I am. And then I can even cut this first customer, get rid of them. And I could even leave this white space here, right? Because we said ignore white space. Come back here, run this, and now I'm the only one in the system. So there you have 22-1. Just make sure it works. A few of you have been making some changes to your code and then submitting it. Just when you make changes to your code, always run it one more time, make sure everything works, then zip it up and submit it.